God of War Ragnarok is not the game that I was expecting it to be, but that's not a bad thing. Ever since God of War launched back in early 2018, I've been theorizing and hypothesizing about what would end up happening in the sequel. And while some of my wildest dreams of what Ragnarok would be were perhaps a bit more exciting than the game we got, the finished product is still stellar in plenty of ways. As the title of the game suggests, God of War Ragnarok sees the franchise's main protagonist, Kratos, and his son, Atreus, returning to deal with a titular cataclysmic event. Following the events of the previous game, Kratos, Atreus, and their other companions are on a collision course with Ragnarok, which is an event that will bring about the fall of the Norse gods. Having already seen one pantheon fall in his lifetime, Kratos finds himself trying to prevent the events of Ragnarok from taking place, while Atreus tries to learn about what his own fate within the conflict looks like. Ragnarok's story is fairly straightforward in its premise, but its through-line themes of fate, death, family, and atonement are greatly powerful. While Ragnarok continues to expand in intriguing ways with characters that we already know, it also introduces a number of new faces over the course of its stay. Outside of the main cast of heroes, Thor and Odin are two of the strongest characters seen throughout the entirety of Ragnarok. Thor contains far more depth than I would have ever expected and makes for an excellent foil to Kratos. Conversely, Odin fills an archetype that we haven't really seen before in the God of War series. Rather than knowing if Odin is completely good or completely bad, his motives are almost constantly shrouded in mystery and are always being questioned. Perhaps it goes without saying, but the performances for all of these characters in God of War Ragnarok are downright incredible. Christopher Judge and Sonny Suljic continue to be phenomenal, with Suljic's performance as Atreus really standing out that much more this time around. Outside of the story, characters, and world of God of War Ragnarok, the thing that you'll primarily be doing over the course of the game is beating enemies to a pulp with Kratos. Broadly, the combat mechanics in Ragnarok haven't been drastically overhauled and have instead just been a bit refined. In typical sequel fashion though, God of War Ragnarok also gives Kratos some new toys to play with. The Leviathan Axe and the Blades of Chaos return once again and are the main tools that Kratos uses for a good chunk of Ragnarok. Eventually though, a new weapon enters the fray that completely changes the dynamics of combat, and it wonderfully sits alongside the Blades and Axe. The thing that continues to work best with God of War Ragnarok is that its combat has a great sense of flow. Switching between all of the weapons that Kratos has in his toolset is easy, and it never feels like it slows down the pace of battle. Likely the biggest gameplay departure in God of War Ragnarok though, is that the game lets you play as Atreus. While it's an enjoyable novelty to play as Atreus, I can't say I loved his gameplay sections as much when compared to Kratos. Atreus primarily uses his bow as his main weapon, not only to fire arrows, but also to beat down foes. This works fine for what it is, but playing as Atreus doesn't feel as visceral or as snappy when compared to his father. After finishing Ragnarok's main story, there's once again an extensive post-game section where you'll be able to challenge yourself even further. Side quests are pretty prominent throughout Ragnarok, and there's a good variety of missions to take part in. God of War Ragnarok's writing continues to be top tier even in these side quests, which makes the process of going out of your way to complete them less of a chore and more of something that you'll want to do naturally. If you do everything that God of War Ragnarok has to offer, you'll be getting quite familiar with the 9 realms of the Norse mythology. Many of these realms were seen in the previous God of War game, and those that do make a return in Ragnarok aren't all that different from before, which is somewhat disappointing. Still, the new areas that haven't been seen before like Svartalfheim and Asgard are among the best that have ever been showcased. It's the diversity of each realm that shows Santa Monica Studios' true talents when it comes to art direction. Despite having a couple problems with God of War Ragnarok, it's hard for me to say that the game is anything less than excellent. Even with high expectations, Ragnarok ended up being a game that I thoroughly enjoyed from its bombastic opening to its character-driven conclusion. Some issues that the previous God of War entry had became a bit more apparent to me with Ragnarok, but otherwise, this is a game that fans are without a doubt going to be happy with. For more on God of War Ragnarok, be sure to continue following our ongoing coverage here on Comicbook.com.